It's February 19th, 2026, and welcome to episode 119 of the Driving Forward podcast. Whether you're joining us live or listening on one of our 18 platforms, including Reese Across America Radio, where we broadcast every Tuesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time, we appreciate your support. Next week, I'm going to take a couple days off, and we'll be running an episode from the archives. Following that, Saturday, February 28th, we're at the TCA annual convention. We'll be down in Orlando, so if you're going to be there, reach out to us. We'd love to chat with you. We'll also be hosting the podcast there as well. We're always looking forward to seeing everyone. This is a great event every year. So swing on by. We'll do some interviews. We'll chat up the industry and whatnot. But looking forward to seeing everybody at TCA 2026. I think they call it Truckload 2026. So upcoming events past this. So we just got out of Manifest and had a great event at the $1 Million Trucker Bar where Venture 53 awarded $3 million to a couple port companies that they work with. So that was very amazing. We were only expecting $1 million, and they did $3 million. So we'll be, once again, TCA, TMC. We'll have a few people at TMC in Nashville. Following that, Mid-America Truck Show or MATS. I've got a panel I'll be on there and be doing quite a few interviews as we're getting things lined up. Decision 44 in Chicago. I'm not going to read all of these, but we're going to be kind of everywhere here through the end of April. Capping it all off at ATA mid-year in Hollywood, Florida. I'll say this, though, and coming out of Manifest, I'm still in recovery. So much so that our podcast area, the studio didn't get set up today. Because we're just going to break it right back down and head to head to Florida for TCA. So what's the point of going through the whole thing? So we threw up the banner behind me, which I actually kind of like. We might have to explore that a little closer. But anyway, looking forward to this episode with Bill Champine and Will Jenkins. We did this almost a year ago as a panel for Broker Carrier Summit in Indianapolis. So freight really doesn't care what kind of day you're having. It doesn't care if you slept. It doesn't care if your best person quit. It doesn't care if the market just punched you in the mouth. So trucks still roll. The phones still ring. The problems still show up. And if you're leading in trucking and logistics, you're carrying weight most people will never see. This industry isn't just quotes on the wall, or leadership with this industry isn't just a bunch of quotes on the wall. It's decisions with consequences. It's people, payroll, safety, service, and customers who want miracles in many cases with timelines that are impossible to meet. Today's episode's about that weight. Not the high-level real version, but the actual real version, the what it costs, what it demands, and what it takes to keep your culture intact when the pressure is constant. So once again, we have Will Jenkins and Bill Champine on with me today, two leaders that have lived this life from a couple different angles. And we're going straight into the stuff most people dodge: failure, conflict, accountability, growth, and what happens to you when you're the one everyone looks at when it's going sideways. If you lead a team or you want to lead a team, this one's for you. Well, Bill, Will, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Nate. Good to see you guys again.
Yeah.
What's up, Nate?
It hasn't been long for Will and I, just a couple days, but for Bill, it's been a minute. So let's do a couple quick intros here just for everybody. Bill, why don't we start out with you? Tell us who you are, what you do.
Well, I'm Bill Champine. I started my career in the transportation logistics industry Back right around 2000, right around the turn of the millennia. At that time, I started working and have been through some progressive different roles at a couple major national carriers in both the dry van and the reefer space. I also spent some time out on the West Coast doing some freight forwarding work out of the Port of Tacoma. And then I came to venture in 2019, so just about 7 years ago, and have been in the role of leading our asset-based trucking business since that time in 2019. So
Great. Appreciate that. Will?
What's going on, Nate? My name is Will Jenkins, CEO and founder of Journey. Quick background on myself. I've been in the space the past 12 years, started my career at Coyote. I met a couple of great people there that I had the opportunity to co-found Molo Solutions with in 2017. We launched that business July 5th of 2017, so about 9 years ago. During my time building that business, I led our sales team and trained the first 200 people that we hired. It was a ton of fun building and scaling that organization. We ended up selling that business year 4 to ArcBest. The deal closed November of 2021. I stayed on for about 18 months after that and primarily wanted to see us be able to get to the $1 billion revenue mark. We did 1.25 billion in 2022. Ended up leaving May of 23, wanted to pursue building something new and landed on starting my new company Journey. And in this venture, we do 3 things: recruiting, consulting, and training for freight brokerages, asset-based players, and freight tech companies. We got about 160 companies we do business with. And it's been a lot of fun building the last 2.5 years.
Thank you very much. So in one sentence, or actually I'll extend it past one sentence. So in a brief answer, can you guys individually answer, what does the weight of leadership mean in trucking and logistics to you? So Bill, let's start, I started with you last time, Bill, so let's go to Will on that. What does the weight of leadership mean in trucking and logistics to you?
To me, it means finding ways to solve problems when they seem to be insurmountable and showing up with the same level of effort day in and day out when you're trying to help your team move through those challenges.
Fair answer. Well, Bill, I'm going to get messed up with Will and Bill.
That's okay. We'll probably answer to either. For me, I think what it means is that it is, you referred to it a little bit in your introduction, it is never ending. Part of what this industry is all about is the fact that it simply doesn't stop. And in order, I think, really to be an effective leader, one of the things you have to do is be willing to step up and embrace that and recognize that your day isn't going to turn off, and that there's always going to be some level of demand on your time and your effort and your energy. And if you're willing and able to do that, that's a good thing, and that will be good for your people and your team. And if you're not, you're probably then not serving anyone particularly well.
Great answers from both of you. So kind of a follow-up to that is, and Bill, you might have alluded to some of this, but a lot of it's the decisions that you make and they don't stop. So in this industry that's 24/7, 365. So what's heavier on you, do you believe, the decisions that you make or the ones that you delay? So Bill, we'll start off with you on this one.
That's pretty tough. I think to some extent, the ones that you don't make, there's the unknown. It's kind of like, cost avoidance. You never know what would have happened and what wouldn't have. I do think it weighs pretty heavily, the decisions that you do make, and what I think is particularly when it is about your people, about the people on your team, and the decisions that we make that impact their lives, that impact their schedules, that impact how much time they're going to be with or be away from their families. Sometimes even really hard decisions about, do we keep somebody on our team or not? Those are decisions that, at least for me, when they directly impact our people, I think that are pretty tough.
Great.
I would say, for personally, it's the decisions that I delay because they're the ones that typically are less fun. And you think about it you're straddling the line. Is it the right thing to do? And you typically kind of already know that it's something that has to be done. You want to rip that Band-Aid off. And like Bill said, you may be impacting someone's livelihood. This may change the dynamic of their day-to-day. It's nothing that you take lightly, but I find that personally to be where the challenges are for myself. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like next Monday, we got to do this thing, right? And I'm not at all looking forward to it.
The decisions that's why I have to go along with that line. So for me, the decisions that are crisp are decisive. They're easy to make. The ones that you delay, staffing changes, whatnot, those eat at you or can eat at you. So to the point, in some cases, you don't have enough information, so you're just going to delay, and that can be one thing. So there can be a mix on that delay side, but typically, being decisive in this role is easy, or not easy. It's never easy, but it's easier. It's an obvious answer. So that's my answer to that one. But it is a heavy weight either way. So, Will, when did you learn about people that turned out? How am I going to put this one? What did you learn early about people that turned out to be the real advantage?
So one of the things I think is interesting, regardless of stage of organization, is that when you go and hire really, really talented people, they immediately make an impact. And so that impact can be different, depending on the department that they're in or the role that they have. But they come in and they think differently about solving problems, or they think differently about servicing customers or developing talent. And it is palpable. Like they walk in the room and that person is there to do work. And that doesn't mean that they have to be this large, gregarious figure that is, overly confident. They're just really, really exceptional at what they do. And so that's interesting when I think about the force multiplier of going to go get the top talented people. It is night and day. Sometimes people say, 1 or 2x. No. The most talented people are 10x whoever they're competing against, and it the day they walk in the door and they get their hands on whatever department they're a part of. And so that to me is just super interesting in the space that we're in today, because you see people go and make massive impacts to orgs. Those are the A++ players that you want to see come in and make those changes.
I agree with Will's point, and I think one of the characteristics that I see when you find those people, you see it immediately. To your point, Will, what you see though is that they get into the details quickly. The really top performers that have been a part of teams that I've been on haven't been folks that came in and said, you know what, I'm interested in skimming at the high level for X period of time. It's almost across the board. They all start digging in at the detailed level very quickly. And that's how they uncover where the real opportunities for improvement are.
It's like an obsession. And you see, they start to peel back the layers and they're asking more and more questions. Like, I just got here, go do your thing. You got to dig into the whole thing to understand what's going on.
Yeah. They just don't let go.
Right. Definite differentiator, and I agree with the 10x statement. I think it's important for organizations to understand, and I use this term frequently, or this statement frequently, which is you can't be a prophet in your own land. So even those top performers, it's important for leadership teams to understand that just because a top performer is an unknown quantity in the beginning, doesn't make them a top performer for a short period of time. So lots of times you'll see organizations 6 months in, a year in, that top performer starts to become marginalized because they're now a prophet in their own land. So that's a call out that I do see there. So, Bill, is there a specific year or portion in your career, or time in your career that you realized this is what I'm doing and I'm really built for this?
Probably right around, for me, it was probably right around 2007, 2008. And that was the point in time where, I transitioned into a role that really had a little bit broader responsibility than, a pure functional role, more of an executive viewpoint. I'll be honest, I never went in my career looking for transportation and logistics. It kind of found me through a completely different path. And, we all have these great people that are mentors and that are acquaintances that we have, part of the network that we develop over time. At one point, right around 2000, that network kind of sucked me into the industry. And it was fun. It was neat. It was exciting. Kind of that 24-hour thing is adrenaline based.
Sure.
It definitely gives you a rush. But I think it was around 2007 where for me, it really kicked in. I said, you know what? I can see myself committing to this, and I can really see myself extending this through the balance of my career. I think that's when I made that transition and change.
I think there were two different times. So my first job ever, I sold Cutco kitchen cutlery. I did that for 4 years in college, and I had an opportunity to run an office for them, and it taught me entrepreneurship. Getting that job at 18, it flipped the switch in my brain around what it looked like to go produce and then be compensated based on the value that you created. So that was the first opportunity. Okay, if you go and produce outsized returns, you will be compensated very well. It's like, okay, maybe sales is for me, right? This is really interesting. Then I get into freight. And I remember walking into the door at Coyote. I had a handful of friends that worked there that were doing quite well. And the energy was palpable. It was just so fun. And there was so much competition. And it's like, okay, well, I like to compete. I just got done playing college football. I love to be able to, work on a team. And so the combination of the opportunity to sell, work in a really cool, fast-paced environment, put those two things together, I was like, okay, maybe freight is for me. And 12 years later, Red, I'm glad that I took the leap and haven't looked back. It's a very specific, and it's a specific industry for a specific type of kind of crazy person. So,
no, great answers, both of you. On my side, I first started as a driver. I decided I didn't want to be a cop, so that's what I was going to school for. So I went through a period of time where I was driving, and then I moved into an office. I kind of liked the safety operations aspect. And then through a series of events, ended up at running a company at a fairly young age that was under dynamic growth. So every day it was a constant reinvention of who we are, what we did, and we were very niche. Now today it might not be as niche, but nobody was running relay operations in 2001. So very few. So and we had a lot of trucks that were doing that. So it was the constant evolution of business that kept me wrapped in, and still kind of keeps me wrapped in today. Now we don't work with one company. We work more with like 400, and we deal with all their problems on a daily basis and help guide them. So that's honestly how really GLCS came about, was that same thing, constant reinvention and always trying to solve the problem. So who called you out first? Well, a mentor, customer, employee, who was the first person who kind of called you out on this?
So when we say call out, would that be, hey, this is for you, or no, you need to get your act together?
Well, I think that could be the same way, right?
Yeah.
If you want to be in it, then you got to get your act together, or that could be either way. So whatever carries the most weight.
So I actually will shout out one of my best friends and current business partner, Justin Turner. He and I worked together at Coyote, and he was several years ahead of me in his career. He was the director there, leading a team and helping to build a lot of the sales training and things of that nature. And I was 2 years in on the carrier side of the business, and I was doing quite well, booking a lot of freight, developing relationships, making good money. And he came to my desk, tapped me on the shoulder, and said, hey, they're about to post a job for a sales manager. They need a new sales manager here in Chicago, and I think you should interview for it. I'm on the phone, just slinging freight. I turn, I look up, I'm like, dude, get out of here, right? Like, I'm making too much money, I'm doing well, like, I don't need that. And then I realized I was having a conversation that was not one where the person was suggesting. They were saying, you need to do this. It's very different than like, oh, it would be nice if you thought about it. He's like, no, open, go to the HR platform, apply for the job. Like, this is the thing you need to do. And I think I was probably a little short-sighted at that time, making good money. It was fun. I'm enjoying it. But this was a career step to understand a different side of the business. And most of my experience up to that point was very commercial, suit and tie, face-to-face, long-term sales. But I'd found my stride in carrier sales, so maybe I ignore it. That pivot changed my entire career from just being able to get in front of the right types of shippers and learn how to develop relationships and sell a different side of the business. But I would not be here sitting here talking to y'all about this today if Justin hadn't come to my desk one day and said, you need to do this and I'm going to advocate for you. So it was a pivotal opportunity, and now we get to build Journey together, which is pretty cool. But yeah, he had to shake me a little bit and say, you got to go do this.
Bill, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, for me, it was, I referenced that 2007 period. I had come into the industry a number of years before that. And the path that got me there was I was doing process improvement work. I was doing consulting work, and I came into transportation and logistics to basically be in a support function. And after a couple of years doing that, the largest internal customer that I had, which at that time was the senior leader, the senior vice president who was responsible for truckload operations up at Schneider National up in Green Bay, as my internal customer, one day, kind of like Will, tapped me on the shoulder and said, listen, I would like and would prefer if you not continue doing internal support work. I've got a senior leader position open, and I want you to actually do things rather than recommend to everybody how to do them. I think I can actually see you doing it. And so let's make that transition from a support function to a mainline leadership. And that's when I really dug in and said, I enjoy this industry. There's part of that I think we've all kind of referenced, which is one of the things, there's a characteristic that I see in people in leadership positions in this industry is they learn to be comfortable in ambiguity and in a world where you are inherently uncomfortable. If what you expect is that you're going to know exactly what's going to happen at 8:15 and then at 9:30, and you're going to know what's going to happen on Wednesday as opposed to Friday, probably a leadership role in this industry isn't what you want to do. On the other hand, if you can deal with that uncertainty, if you can actually thrive and get some energy from that constant not knowing what's going to happen in the next hour, let alone the next day, that's probably a characteristic that will serve you well.
Absolutely, being comfortable with discomfort. That's something we all live in, and it's a skill that allows you to be anywhere at any time and not feel like you're being crushed. So I don't know what I would do without that.
Same.
Every day is that way, and some days are wild. So, and just being that person in the room that's the anchor point of, you don't have to let people know that you don't know what to do, but the point is you're making a decision, and you're making the best decision based on your experience, or you're acquiring it, but you're not losing your cool. So, and that's something that this business does to you after a few years, if you're solid at it. So 100% enjoy that answer. So realities of leading freight companies in any way, shape, or form, there's really kind of no participation trophies for the most part. You don't kind of get them. But kind of digging into that further, can you describe, I'll start with Bill on this one. Can you describe a failure that you still think about and how it changed you?
One of the I want to say motto, but one of the axioms that we try to live by here is to solve for yes, and to figure out, regardless of what that customer, what that client is asking, figure out a way to say, yes, I can do that. Yes, we can do that for you. Now, it's okay to say it's going to require A, B, and C from a resources perspective or from a commitment perspective, or there is these implications down the road that we should consider. But always be looking for a way to say yes. I can remember, very specifically one opportunity where my head wasn't in that space, and this was probably a good 15 years ago. And customer was, looking for a solution to a problem, wasn't at the wheelhouse of what my team did. And so it was easy to just pass on it. Well, what happened was the next guy down the road took that opportunity, and they weren't any better at it than we would have been, than the team that I was with could have been. And they picked it up and they ran with it and actually became wildly successful. And it turned into a growth opportunity for them. And so, years later, I've looked back at that and said, but for saying no, that could have been us. And so, yeah, I've regretted that for a long time. Not being in the mindset all the time of solve for yes.
Will, what's your answer there?
So I have one that is relatively recent, just thinking about building Journey and getting this thing off the ground. Early on, you're shooting from the hip, running 1,000,000 miles per hour, trying to figure things out. And so we're onboarding a ton of customers across the 3 services, recruiting, consulting, and training. And so I don't think I invested enough time in our team early on to help them be really, really excellent at what they need to do, to find the right types of candidates, to engage with clients properly, to work through different customer support scenarios, because you're doing so many things, but that's not an excuse, right? You need to set the time aside to help your team understand how to develop and get better at what they do. And that absolutely was a hindrance to our ability to execute. And so I think about, probably mid-year last year, having to really roll my sleeves up and be super in the business, which was at the time not super fun, but the best thing that could have happened, because I think about the amount of stuff that we do today to equip the group to be really, really excellent and capable to work through scenarios and go and help our customers. But man, was that painful, right? And it falls on me to say, okay, you've got to allocate the time, no matter how busy you are, to make sure that everyone gets what they need to be successful, because you're investing in them. And so if you're not going to do that, you might as well, to be honest with you, probably not add them to the team, right? If you're not going to give them everything they need to be successful.
Right. Well, and hindsight's 20/20. So you end up learning as you go, especially as you're building something new. You've done it before a whole bunch of times. You kind of know the roadmap, and you can create differentiators for yourself, but the roadmap's the roadmap. When you're doing something new, you got to learn as you go a little bit. So I speak first-handedly on that. Jacob, we'll answer Jacob's question and then go to break here. But Jacob says or asks, what strategies do you all have to deal with the pressure that rises? Will, you take this one.
For me, it is my mornings with the workouts and just getting in the gym to clear my head, whether it's 30 minutes. Most of the workouts are 45 minutes to an hour. But even if it's just 30 minutes to get a sweat going and just start my day, I have to do that. Otherwise, I am a shell of myself. I'm stressed and don't think very clearly. I don't think I'm very creative. So for me, it's just the way I start my day, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour. I got to get the body moving, and that helps me. Even on like days where I look at my calendar, I'm like, oh my gosh, right, I'm back to back to back, and I got proposals and whatnot. If I get my workout in, it's still a tough day, but it's way better than it would have been otherwise.
Bill, how about you?
I wish I were able to say that I was as disciplined as Will in the taking care of myself physically space. But I would say, taking that time and stepping back, it's important for me too. I see it more in the mental space, whatever you want to call it, whether it's meditating or just being able to find 15 or 20 minutes every day to turn everything off, step away for a short period of time from that phone and just go someplace and breathe. That for me has proven to be really helpful. Just have that short period of time where I know I'm not going to be interrupted, and I can, de-stress just a little bit and let things go.
So I go along with Will to a certain point. Maybe I don't throw as much weight around as he does, but even just going for a walk, getting out. I know I've been feeling a little bit more here over the last couple of weeks because I've had an injury I've been dealing with. I can't do much, can't walk, can't do it. Walking is horrible. So my walking is just starting to come around. But when you lever that, that's your avenue to de-stress on a daily basis, and you don't have that anymore. It gets a little tough. So I go the same route, but in the past, before I was in the gym, definitely just going for a walk. A quarter-mile walk will clear your brain if you can do it. Just silencing the world around you also. So, but that walking goes back for nearly 30 years. I just leave the office, go for a walk around the block, come back, and you might not rip somebody's head off. So,
it doesn't hurt to have a good dog. A good dog will, just take your mind, because they really don't care whether that load moved on time or not. Yeah. They just want to come up and get in your face and be a dog for a while.
It's amazing.
I love that thought too. I have a good dog, so
yep.
We'll go to break, and then we'll come back, and I've got a couple other questions lining up. But we will be back in about a minute and a half. Queue up questions if you have them.
If your fleet's downtime looks like chaos, you're missing out on GLCS. In the time-critical world of trucking and logistics, every minute counts. Meet GLCS, your expert partner in managed IT and technology services. We integrate seamlessly with your team, bringing seasoned IT professionals with deep trucking and logistics expertise. Imagine your software updates running smoothly, complex issues resolved quickly, and operations humming with efficiency. GLCS has your back. Our support doesn't just fix problems, it prevents them with our industry connections and proactive approach. We keep your trucks rolling and your brokers working. Think of us as the added resource your company needs to unleash its full potential. Visit glcs.net today and keep your business driving forward. GLCS, where efficiency meets expertise.
And we're back. So Chris Thomas says bourbon and a fire on the ridge is the ultimate mental reset. And I can get behind that too. Some good downtime, a nice fire. So just Chris, I would imagine that UTV is probably a pretty good mental reset too, as long as you keep it on all four wheels. So if you hadn't seen, Chris posted that he rolled his UTV last weekend. So another comment came in from Travis. Gentlemen, as someone who builds risk mitigation systems, I have a question for you. With the rise of autonomous tech and AI dispatching, what is the one human leadership trait that will remain irreplaceable in freight management over the next 5 years for exposing Potemkin villages and systemic fraud? So Potemkin village is going to be kind of a fake village, not reality. So what's your thoughts on that, Bill?
I'd have to think about the piece on systemic fraud, et cetera. But one of the things that I've come to learn and embrace over a number of years is when people show you who they are, trust them. And so when you see the characteristics of a person and you kind of get exposed to them early on, words can be words, but trust your gut and trust what you learned about individuals and people. And I think that, pulling it back to the question about AI, maybe one thing that can't ever be replaced, not just in this industry, but any place else, is kind of that instinctual ability that we have to figure out other people and then to say, do I trust that person or not? And go with your gut if you trust them. But if you've learned not to, definitely listen to that inner voice.
Well,
Bill, I agree with you a ton. I don't have a lot to add outside of the fact that I think most of what people spend their time doing will be very, very high value revenue generating activities in front of customers, developing relationships, and most other things will be to an extent streamlined. I will not say that people won't be involved, but at the end of the day, you need to be able to discern between right and wrong. Like, is this the right decision for us or the wrong decision for us? I don't think we're going to give that completely up to technology to manage. And so at the highest level as leaders, you're going to have to still make really, really tough calls on, is this a customer or a vendor that we transact with or not? At what level? How do you work through those scenarios? And so I don't think that stuff's going anywhere.
No, I don't think either. And to kind of combine the two answers, decisions have to be made. And sometimes it's a decision to move forward. Sometimes it's a decision to roll back. So in looking at the question and how it's related to AI or frankly anything, as a leader, we will always be making that decision on, are we pursuing this opportunity, whether it's sales, whether it's technology, whether it's whatnot. And if we do pursue it and it doesn't work out, especially today where we don't necessarily know if all solutions are going to be there tomorrow, we as leaders have to make quick decisions for our organizations to back out of decisions that we poorly made previously. And using systems to do that is unlikely anytime in the near future.
Will used the word that keyed me on this one, I think is really important, which was relationships. The one thing that I think AI will certainly continue to grow and develop, and it will really help us make good decisions about transactions. But I don't think necessarily it can ever replace the ability that the rest of us have about developing relationships. And those relationships are really what I have seen and have learned to be so critical about when you're successful and when you're not. Can you be someone who builds bridges and builds relationships, or are you focused on being transactional and making the best decision for this microsecond in time, but it's this microsecond only?
Yeah, I like that, which a couple of follow-ups, I could probably talk on that for the whole podcast actually. But so where do you see this? And I'm not saying that you do it, but where do you see where leaders can unintentionally dehumanize people today?
I think it's really easy to do if you don't have consistent touch-based conversations with the people on the front lines to understand what's going on behind the numbers. At the end of the day, we all have a business to run, and that business needs to be net profitable for us to still have the ability to employ people and continue to grow. So we're not going to say that doesn't matter. But typically, if someone isn't performing or something is going awry, there's something behind it, right? There could be a personal issue, be something going on at home, right? Could be what's happening with a manager. Maybe I don't vibe with that particular person, right? But I'm like a high performer. I'm really good at what I do. And if you get too far removed from that, it's really easy just to look and go, that's just a line on the spreadsheet and a person that is not getting the performance that we need to. Sometimes that is the case, right? Someone may not be performing and there are a lot of extenuating circumstances leading to that performance. And, you got to do what you got to do. But these are people that are in the seat doing what they need to do to help this business grow. And so oftentimes, if you're too far removed from that, or you don't have a clue what's going on in that person's day to day, it's really, really hard to tell. And I think that's super common, especially when you're in a market similar to what we're in right now, which is we're very deflationary, and you're looking at all the dollars and cents, every single one.
Right. Everything matters. Bill, what's your thoughts on that?
I don't have a ton more there to add, other than I think, to Will's point, understanding what's going on with that other person. If you don't at least make the effort to understand that is when you're dehumanizing, when that's just, I'm not dealing with that as a person, as a team member, as a teammate. At least whether if it's a performance problem and, a lack of delivery, make the effort to understand the why. Doesn't mean you have to accept the why, but at least understanding the why allows you then to make a good decision, the right one, the best one for the organization, and hopefully also in the long run, the best one for the person as well.
I had a refreshing conversation this morning with a current consulting client, absolutely in this vein, around someone that is not performing at the clip that they'd like to see. And they took it upon themselves to say, yes, but I have not done everything that I should do to help them be successful. I haven't spent enough time with them on a daily basis. I haven't coached them. So sure, they may not be doing great. I got to dig my heels in to help them perform before we realize that maybe this isn't the fit. And I was like, honestly, respect, right? You want to make sure that you do what you can for them before you say, hey, this is not a fit for either party.
Oh, agree with that entirely. And, ultimately, to look at it from the other side, though, too, if you know it's not going to be a fit, it's not going to be a fit, right? But if you feel like it's partly your issue that you haven't given them the toolbox that they need to be able to go do the work that they're required to do, then absolutely, that's a lot of respect to that person and organization. You both talk about the front line a little bit. What's a habit that keeps you close to the front line that you do weekly, daily, whatever? Bill, take it away with this one.
Physical presence just matters so much. Whether it's the front line at a client or at a customer, or it's the front line out on the floor inside our own facility, being removed from the people part really creates a lack of understanding. And, what I've found is that even when it's not particularly convenient, the value comes in, walking the floor. I think probably in, management culture 25 years ago, we're called leadership by walking around. However you want to term that phrase now, the value of actually getting out there and just observing what is taking place, it just helps your own development and understanding, and allows you to, see really what is taking place with your team.
Totally agree with Bill. One of the things that I enjoy, I feel is maybe a little cathartic, is looking at metrics with our team together and doing it the same day of the week, every week, for the items that drive our business forward. So net new logos across our 3 different services. And then specifically inside of those, what are the deliverables or certain things we need to do, whether it's place a candidate or execute an engagement or work through something for customer success. And it's just refreshing to see, okay, these are the blockers. This is something that we might be having a hard time with and that keeps presenting itself. So we need to figure out a way to make that easier, or we're hitting our stride and the flywheel is cranking. And so we know that that's working well. I love it because it's just very close to the source of what the business does. And so I think it keeps me sharp, but it also keeps me honest when something might not be going well. At least I'm close enough to have an idea of what might be a challenge with it.
No, that's great. I've got 2 questions that kind of roll out of that. But first one is going to be, how do you push really high standards without burning out your A players, your superheroes? Will, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, I'm probably the worst person to respond to this question because I have an intense personality, and when I boil things down, I want to win. That's it. I want to win. I want to find ways for our business to be the best version of itself possible. And that is not for everybody. It's actually only for a small, specific subset of person that can deal with that level of intensity and pressure. So for me, it is doing all of the stuff and more that I would ask anyone on my team to do, to execute for our team or for our customers every single day, day in and day out, 24/7, every day, because I think it sets the pace and the tone. And it is off-putting for some people that just want to have a job and chill. This is not the place to work. I'm not the person to work with if that's you. For the people that want that level of accountability and want to be paid quite well to perform, it works very well. But there's no halfway in, halfway out. And so the only way for me to push people at that clip is to bring that same level of intensity, which I think creates the right culture. But it's not easy by any means.
Bill, your thoughts on that?
I think if we're talking specifically about the people that are the high-level performers, for me, it's about being really careful about tone. Those folks are already geared towards wanting to win, geared towards wanting to commit and to give everything they have to it. And so if there's an issue and something that needs to be addressed, the tone that I have to use in order to get that across is different than the tone you take with somebody that, to Will's point, really, hey man, I just want to be here until 4 o'clock or until whatever shift I'm on ends, and then I want to go. There you have to impart that urgency. With those other folks, they've already got it. Right. And so don't let your tone come across as you're challenging whether or not they are committed. You really have to be careful about then guiding it and making sure that what you're communicating is about the process or the result, and not about what is already, what is already inherent to that person.
So both of you rolled in your own way kind of into a metric or a measure or a process, right? So how do you know if you've drifted too far into that metric? So because I'm a metric driven leader as well. I mean, I always need my data, but there is a point where you go too far into the data. So how have you ever encountered that? And then what's your thoughts around that question?
I have. I think it's typically when you're paying too much attention to the maintenance of the metrics than you do the performance or the output. I'll give an example. One of the best sales reps I've ever worked with, I could just never get to do any CRM compliance and just like the tidying up of information. And every month, the allotted number of net new customers showed up, volume went up, and gross margin went up. Always had new customer calls. And I just said, man, it is what it is, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and try to like get you to do this. It would be nice, don't embarrass me, don't make me look bad in front of the team because you're not doing the stuff that everyone else is supposed to, but you're producing, man. So I think when you get to the point where you're just like being hyper meticulous about inputs when someone is producing, or hyper meticulous about that because you're just saying like, that's how it's got to be. At the end of the day, man, we need this thing to grow. And if we're doing that, to probably focus on the activities that are driving that forward and a little bit less. I had to learn that though.
Bill?
Yeah, I think we're kind of hitting around what I see as the point of you can't go to where you're at diminishing returns. I'm very much, geared towards 80-20. If I've set the goal here, and if we can get 80% of that goal with only 20% of the effort, that's great. Take that low-hanging fruit. Do what you can to continue to grind on those metrics and get more. But there is a point at which now you're really not serving the outcome. You're just serving the metric itself. Will's comment about you're spending more time measuring it and figuring out the nuances of how to measure it even more finely than you are in capturing value from the outcome and the output. So always be conscious of, have we reached a point of diminishing returns on this? Or could I go find something else to focus on where I can get 80-20? I can get 80% great return with 20% effort, and then cycle back through more of those.
Like both the answers. And there are times in an organization. So you always want to build and support your top performers. You always want to put the people around them. And to Bill's point, the 80-20 plan, and eventually as you build out a larger organization, you're going to come into a scenario where that top performer takes too much to support. So those are questions that have popped up in my world, where here's a great sales rep, but they're destroying the rest of the company and what they're doing. They're bringing in good deals, but it's impossible to service it. Or it's more difficult than it's worth doing in a lot of cases. So, honestly, you end up twisting and turning as much as you can to support that person, but eventually you end up in that space. And that can happen in any role in the company entirely. And that does kind of take you around those metrics and the effort that it takes to support those people. So, moving along, because I had about 50 million different topics I wanted to talk about, and we're only going to touch on a few of them. Let's look. We talked about growth and scaling. You guys both have done quite a bit of that throughout your career in a couple of different ways. So these are brokerage fleet questions. So what fractures first in a brokerage? Would you say hiring, training, or accountability? Well,
Man, I would say they all break at different times. I don't know that I would flag one specifically over the other. If an org is growing very fast and you're hiring just to keep up with demand, hiring will break because you're going to end up filtering people through that you may not have if the demand weren't as high as it needed to be just to service the freight. This happens all the time. The market peaks up, you need a bunch of people to help, and you get people through the filter that maybe weren't 10 out of 10 with how you've hired in the past. Likewise, if you don't have good mechanisms to train them and equip them to do their jobs well, that's probably, as I think about it, one of the more common ways that something breaks, because you've got this standard that you operate freight under, but not everyone is brought up to speed the same way. So it's a mixed bag of how carriers are taken care of, or how customers are taken care of, how managers manage. And that might depend on the pod that you work in. That's really tough to grow and scale, because one customer could get Nate and Bill, and they're like, we love this place. This place is incredible. And another customer gets two other people and are like, this place stinks, right? So that is super, super common. It happens all the time.
Bill, your answer to that?
I'm really focused on the training piece, because what I see and have witnessed many, many times is all the effort and energy goes into finding these great people. You find this acorn that you've been looking for, and it is exactly, that person is exactly what you want. They've got the experience, they've got the interpersonal skills, they've got, all of the right, even characteristics and attributes that are difficult to quantify. And when you see that, it's really easy to say, okay, I've solved my problem, drop them in, let me move on to something else. And if you haven't put the time and effort into training and developing them, having the right skills and the right characteristics isn't going to deliver the results. They still have to learn your organization. They still have to learn your culture. They still have to learn your process. They still have to learn your customer base. Just because someone is skilled and capable doesn't mean you can just plug and play, drop them in, and then move on. And I've seen, unfortunately, and have failed personally before, by getting a great person and then not putting the effort in to train and develop them. And so all that effort then was at finding them was ultimately wasted.
So 2 more questions, and we'll wrap this one up. So your legacy, whether it's at your organization or your career, whatever you want to put it as, what do you want? And Will may have answered this before a couple of years or a year or so ago, so I don't know, but we'll see. What do you want your people to say when you're not in the room?
I want people to say that Will is the kind of person that does what he says he would do, and leads with empathy and finds ways to solve problems, and is someone that you can rely on. I think about this often. I want people to know that if they come to me or a business that I'm a part of, that they're going to get what they signed up for. And I feel that that speaks volumes for itself. And so if I know that that's how my team thinks about working with me and my team thinks about the business that we do together, I can live with that. I feel really good. I also think my parents would be proud because, you know, they taught me if you sign up for something, you see it through, good, bad, ugly, and different, and you need to do right by the people that are there for you. So that is important to me. That's what I think about. Bill,
your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I would hope ultimately that at the end, the legacy would be that's somebody that got stuff done. Whether, you know, we're talking about at an interpersonal level or at a delivering business results level, or even just at a, you know, solving problems level. I hope that what I've been able to do and what folks will remember is this is somebody that we could rely on, that when we needed something to get done, you know, we could engage with him and it would happen. Not just words, but action.
Perfect. Appreciate those answers. So final question, if a young leader is listening, what's the one thing that you'd tell them to stop doing immediately? Bill, you want to kick that one off?
No. I hadn't thought about that question, Nate. Did you ask Will this question many years ago?
No, I didn't, but I'll ask. But Will, why don't you take it if you got an answer? So.
I would say stop overthinking everything. There are an infinite number of ways that things can go down, and you can have these conversations with yourself. What if this or what if that? You need to have a couple of people that you ask questions to and make the best decision with the information that you have. And you'll look back later in your career and go, I was 90% of the way there, right? I needed a little bit more to understand it. And those things come with confidence. But if I think of an earlier version of myself, second guessing or shoot, is this the right decision? Newsflash, nobody ever really knows if it's the right decision. We're just like doing our best with the information we have. And so when you become comfortable with that, you're able to be a little bit more decisive. You're never going to have all the pieces to the puzzle. And I had someone tell me a long time ago that I'd rather take 70 or 75% of a solid plan than 100% of a perfect plan, because you'll never get there. And so just, you don't have to think as much as you do. You got to just make moves sometimes.
Got an answer, Bill?
Yeah, stop being paralyzed. Stop being fearful. Guess what? Even if you do make the wrong decision, 99% of the time, we're not dealing with stuff that it's going to be life and death. Is it going to get there on time? Yeah, we're going to get it. Don't be paralyzed by fear. Stop worrying.
Yeah. I love that one. I used to use this all the time when I ran a large trucking company, and that, you know, I probably wouldn't say it today, but nobody's going to die. So, you know, running the freight behind, if it happens to be that way, we just be honest and you have that integrity. So appreciate both answers. I'd say for young leaders today, managing up as much as you're managing down is important. You know, your person that you're reporting to is doing a lot of different things. So supporting them and not waiting to just be led by them, but also working with them and providing actions before they're requested, I think is extremely important. So if you're not doing that today, you should be. And I know that's opposite of the way I asked the question. I think I asked the question to stop, but all right. Well, we are coming up on the end. I appreciate you both being on today. I think we could have tripled this duration easily. So, but Will, where can people find you?
I am super active on LinkedIn, and my LinkedIn's just Will Jenkins. I believe the handle is at Will Jenkins WCJ. My email is will@journeydelivers.com, and our company LinkedIn and all of our other socials are really active as well. And those are Journey and @JourneyDelivers for most of our socials. So I appreciate you, Nate. Thank you.
Absolutely. Bill?
For me, via email, you can get me at either Champine or B Champine. Both addresses work. At venturelogistics.com. And would love to talk to folks. I'm also on LinkedIn, so either of those methods is good. Email is probably preferable, and what I'm going to see far more often.
Absolutely appreciate it. And next time I'm in Indy, I'll be sure to stop by, which actually is going to be sometime late March, I believe. So, potentially drive down to Matt's. So I did that last year, and I think I'm going to rinse and repeat this year. So we'll see. But appreciate you both being on. I'll wrap this up, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
It was good to see both of you again.
See you.
All right, leadership in trucking and logistics isn't a title. Isn't just a title. It's a weight. It's a pressure. It's decisions that don't always come with perfect information, and consequences that land on real people. And in truth, the truth is, you don't get to lead only when it's easy. You lead when the market turns. You lead when things break. You lead when the team is tired and all that work shows up anyway. So wherever you're listening from, a truck, office, warehouse, wherever, if you're carrying that weight right now, I want you to know that you're not alone. But you also can't pretend it's light. So hold the standard, protect your culture, take care of your people, and don't forget to take care of yourself as well. Because this industry will take everything you're willing to give it. If this has meaning to you, share it with a leader who needs to hear it. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway, and stay curious, stay informed, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, drive forward with purpose and innovation. Thanks for watching.